Welcome, everyone. How are you? Thank you for stopping by for another League of Sims video. Today, we are going to be making Cassiopeia from League of Legends. And she's got an interesting biography, and I thought I would change up how we're doing these videos. So I've created her. You're going to watch the speed creation of her, and I will read you parts of her biography, the most interesting parts. And what I've made with her is a mix of her base skin and her mythic skin, as it was very difficult to find a headpiece that was like her original one. So I improvised. And here is the Cassiopeia you're gonna see in The Sims. Okay, let's get into it. Cassiopeia was born to a life of possibility and privilege among the Noxian noble houses. From an early age, she displayed a keen mind and sharp wit, and while her sister, Katerina, flourished under their father's instruction, it was their mother, Soriana, in whose footsteps Cassiopeia would follow. Cassiopeia remained close to her mother, learning much of politics, diplomacy, and subtle influence. As she grew, Cassiopeia could not help but glimpse other hidden concerns within Soriana, beyond those of the Empire. One day, quite unexpectedly, Soriana collapsed in the family residence. Her hairbrush had been laced with caustic venoms by an unknown hand, leaving her close to death. Still a little more than a child, Cassiopeia never left her mother's bedside. While Soriana's recovery took many months, the bond between them became stronger than ever before. Soriana confided in her daughter that she belonged to a clandestine and secretive cabal known by some as the Black Rose. Having guided the Empire for centuries, they had finally managed to spread their influence into Shurima. In time, and under her mother's tutelage, Cassiopeia blossomed into a young woman of tremendous beauty, cunning, and intelligence, if somewhat lacking in empathy. She saw those around her as tools to be used to achieve her goals, and then cast aside just as quickly. Though she had barely reached the cusp of womanhood, she was initiated into the Black Rose by hunting down and eliminating those who had sought the death of her mother. She surprised even Soriana with her speed and efficiency, and left no trace of her activities or her proxies behind. Only then was Cassiopeia made privy to the Cabal's broader plan for Shurima. Using her family's tremendous resources, she undertook a number of expeditions into the deep desert, raiding ancient ruins with the help of a local mercenary named Sivir. Soriana dispatched Cassiopeia to seek out the godlike power that had been the key to Shurima's supremacy in ages past. Cassiopeia swore she would return with a weapon ready for the looming secret war, or not at all. Fulfilling this oath would leave her changed forever. Upon unearthing a long-lost tomb of the mythical Ascended, she knew this was the threshold to the power she sought, and intended to dispatch all witnesses from her expedition before claiming it. The guide Sivir was the first to fall to Cassiopeia's blade, but then an ancient stone tomb guardian reared up and buried its fangs into her flesh. Overcome by its arcane toxins, she was carried back through the desert by her hired soldiers, screaming as her body twisted into something new and unspeakable. Cassiopeia locked herself in the unused crypt of the Uzeris residence and endured the untold agonies of this transformation. Gone was the brilliant and beautiful daughter of Soriana du Couteau, replaced by a monstrous, slithering creature that skulked in the shadows, spitting poison and crushing stone as easily as glass. For weeks she wept and howled, grieving her lost life, until the day she could weep no more. She dragged herself up from the depths of despair, determined to accept, maybe even someday embrace, her fate. It was not the ascension she had hoped for, but Cassiopeia had unearthed the magic of dead Shuriman gods. She would turn it to the schemes of the Black Rose, just as she and her mother had planned, and she could feel this power growing within her day by day, though into what, even she cannot guess. The shedding of skin. She had been a powerful figure in Noxus. Assassins killed at her slightest whim, soldiers spilled their darkest secrets, and generals willingly followed her counsel in the hopes of patronage. Cassiopeia sighed. These days she emerged only under cover of night. No longer was she an influential voice in Noxian society, not since she had been reduced to the grotesque abomination in hiding. Upon her return from the desert, she had hidden in the crypt of her family's residence, fearful for her transformation. She remained alone in the cold, dark vault for weeks, filled with disgust for her serpentine body and mourning the loss of her aristocratic life. Eventually, a growing desire to hunt overwhelmed her, and she ventured out to roam the city by night as the household slumbered. She followed a broad-shouldered soldier in a leather breastplate as he stumbled from a tavern, drink in hand. Finally, this was the man she'd been waiting for. She trailed his movements from above, following him silently over fortress walls and archways until he entered an empty courtyard. Perfect. She slithered onto an adjacent roof, eyes glinting with predatory thrill. Her shadow alerted him to her presence. "I know you're out there. Show yourself," he said. After a short argument between the two, she spat a bilious wad of venom as he turned toward the sound of her voice. The man howled in pain, coin-sized holes burning through his armor and into his skin. She inhaled the satisfying sear of burning leather and flesh. He was a murderer, someone who had killed 3 tavern wenches. Her gaze bore into the man's eyes, locking them in a cold-hearted bond. She screamed, pouring all her rage into the cry. Fury at the unfairness of her current state, anger at the loss of her privileged life, resentment for her failed ambitions. She channeled it all into the screeching, mind-shredding wail.